Hi Guy.
Now boss.
Right, you've been to Shrewsbury.
Sound,
You've seen Morris Lubricants blending plant.
Sound.
Okay, so we make oil. Okay.
Yep.
Well, this is an ancillary product to oil. This is antifreeze coolants we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
And specifically in the off-highway market. Okay, so we're stood in front of a radiator matrix here. An antifreeze coolant is something I want to talk about today because it's kind of a misunderstood product really. It's almost seen as a seasonal product. You know, the weather starts getting cold, people start thinking about antifreeze.
Yeah.
Whereas actually coolant is a much better description for it because it's used all year round.
To be honest, I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so obviously you've got an internal combustion engine, okay, and you've got to keep that at the optimum operating temperature
Yeah.
for maximum efficiency. So you have a cooling jacket, you have an antifreeze coolant solution in there, taking the heat away to the matrix, out into the atmosphere, regulating that temperature, okay. So the best cooling medium on the planet is water. Water's great. If you want to take heat away from anything, you use water.
Oh, that is right.
Yeah.
For the best heat conductivity.
Absolutely.
Water is
the best
you
way
don't
of taking
you don't beat water, right?
Yeah.
But the trouble is, it's corrosive and it freezes.
So you've got several issues. You've got freezing point,
Yeah.
0 degrees C, of course, boiling point, 100 degrees centigrade,
Yeah.
and as you say, it can be corrosive if it's left in. Obviously, if there's atmosphere present as well. So
Yeah.
So on its own, it's great at taking heat away, but it has those limitations. So in order to overcome those limitations, you have to mix it with monoethylene glycol, usually, MEG, as it's abbreviated,
Go on.
or antifreeze. Okay, so neat antifreeze is basically based on monoethylene glycol.
Go on. Monoethylene glycol.
yeah.
Okay. And what's that? Is that cracked from crude?
So that is, it's chemically produced. Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the building blocks come from crude, but it's chemically produced. And basically, what monoethylene glycol does, by putting monoethylene glycol into water, okay, usually 50-50, but there are different mixing ratios.
Yeah.
You can then depress the freezing point, so you can get it below 0 degrees C. And if you do a 50-50 mix, you'll get down to minus 33, minus 35 degrees C before it freezes, which is brilliant. And when you look at the boiling point, so water boils at 100 degrees centigrade usually. So if you put monoethylene glycol in there in a pressurised system, you can get that up to 108 degrees centigrade.
108?
Yeah.
Okay.
It could
Okay.
depend. Depends
Oh,
on
50-50?
Yeah, 50-50.
Yeah.
But you're looking at a 50-50 mix of getting up around 108 degrees centigrade.
Okay.
So you've got
okay.
plenty of reserve.
Atmospheric pressure?
In the pressurised system of the engine.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So you can get down to minus 33 and up to 108 by putting monoethylene glycol in
which
there.
50-50 mix is the general rule
Absolutely.
of thumb. Is that right?
That's the general
Always
rule of thumb.
50-50.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in hotter parts of the world and you don't need that frost protection, you know, you can do it at, you could do a 40-60 or
Oh, right, but it's
or
still a fairly
33.
rich mixture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Because you
But
need.
what do you need for corrosion prevention?
Right. Okay. So this is the kind of the next part of it. So that's just controlling the freezing point and the boiling point. But then you need to look at the additive chemistry that goes in there, which is where the magic happens really, okay? So monoethylene glycol depresses the freezing point, elevates the boiling point, but of course you're in a system with lots of different metallurgies and materials. It's not just metals, of course. You'll have elastomers, rubbers, hoses, all sorts of different things in there. So you've then got to treat it with chemistry to stop rusting and corrosion taking place. Because obviously water, as you say, it wants to corrode things. And the other thing to bear in mind as well, a bit like lubricants in this respect, is that monoethylene glycol gets hot, which it will do. If it's allowed to oxidise, it actually forms corrosive byproducts. So you need to treat the monoethylene glycol as well to stop that from oxidising, to stop corrosion taking place.
Right.
So in general, a good antifreeze coolant mixture will be the water, the monoethylene glycol, then a whole series of additives to basically look after things like oxidation, corrosion and rust protection, foaming. Foaming is a big issue. You don't want foaming taking
So you're
place.
telling me the monoethylene glycol is as corrosive as the water?
When it becomes oxidised,
Right.
you've got to
when
stop it becoming oxidised.
So what's that? When you
When it's been
present it to the atmosphere?
Well, at high temperatures with oxygen, it will become oxidised. So you don't want that happening.
Right. So you've
okay?
got to offset the corrosive nature of the water, the monoethylene glycol. So
Yes.
you've got to put another additive in there to go on, explain
Absolutely.
that.
So you put the additive chemistry in there to look after that part of the formulation, keep all that nice and safe. But the other important thing to remember with antifreeze coolants as well is you have to keep them slightly alkali. Okay, so water's neutral, as you know, pH is 7. If things become acidic, then you get acidic corrosion. So every antifreeze coolant mixture will be around 8 kind of pH, a little bit more perhaps. If you keep it slightly alkali, you stop acidic corrosive attack. So then you have something called buffering agents in there, which basically makes sure that the pH level is above neutral and it never slips below into the acidic region. So,
go on.
So you need to have that in there as well. And of course, as things oxidise and become acidic, like the monoethylene glycol, it's trying to reduce that alkali capacity, if you like, its reserve. So the chemistry's got to keep buffering it back up again to a workable alkali level. And bearing in mind, and this is different chemistries, all those different chemistries, we have kind of the old school traditional chemistries, and then we have these new OAT chemistries, organic acid technology.
Okay, right.
So you'll be familiar with the old 2-year blue antifreeze.
To be honest, I didn't know that you changed blue antifreeze every 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was the general rule of thumb. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right, and then the red antifreeze, or sort of orange antifreeze, that's a 5-year antifreeze. I didn't know that until you told me that.
Well, and there's a reason for it.
So that was the general rule of thumb, but there's no reason for it to be red or blue. You just chuck whatever additive colour. You could add it pink or...
it's purely cosmetic, yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the colour has
I should have known that. I've been in the trade long enough and I should have known that. I didn't know that. Yeah. Blue generally is 2, 5.
Yeah.
Orange or red is generally 5.
And traditionally it's just been blue. It doesn't have to be blue. But as I say, it's purely colour, it's purely cosmetic, okay? The colour has absolutely no impact on the performance of that antifreeze.
Right,
it's purely
just to give you an idea of what it is. So go on,
so,
Morris Lubricants, what do you do in the way of antifreeze then?
So the old 2-year blue antifreeze I mentioned, okay, the reason it only lasts 2 years is the inhibitor package, we call it, all the lovely chemistry. It's quite active. It wants to get out there and wants to protect everything from rusting and corrosion. It goes for everything. And because it's quite active in that respect, it depletes very quickly. It only lasts 2 years, which is why you have to change after 2 years. Now, the new generation of technology we use, called organic acid technology, it's a little smarter than that. So it only basically attacks or goes for the sites where corrosion starts to take place. So it's kind of sitting in the wings. As soon as it sees or detects the process of metal corrosion, it gets involved with that process and stops it. So it's selective. But because it's selective and it's not going at everything all the time,
it lasts longer.
It'll last up to 5 years. So the new OAT technologies, you'll see normally a 5-year static.
Tell me that again, OAT.
So organic acid technology. So all the old chemistry was based on what we call old inorganic chemistry, like silicates and borates, phosphates, these kind of things. Whereas the new technology is based on carboxylic acid technology, which is organic technology, but it's smarter. It's a bit more astute as to where it wants to activate and where it wants to kill corrosion. So it lasts long for that particular reason. So, and again, a lot of the metallurgies now, the engine metallurgies have changed as well. And what you'll find, manufacturers will specify a certain antifreeze for certain engine types. So you have the old inorganic acid 2-year blue kind of technology and all that chemistry. Then you have the new OAT chemistry, okay, in the new type of antifreezes. But depending on the metallurgy, you can pick a bit of the old school stuff as well and mix that in as well if you wish, if you want to do it. So you get hybrid antifreezes, which kind of sit in the middle. So they're a bit of new school, bit of old school all mixed in. And so depending on the manufacturer, the OEM, because they will know the metallurgy of their engine systems, they will provide a specification that you need to meet or comply with for that particular antifreeze coolant. So it's quite complex, but it's essential because and it's overlooked and it's very much bought.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Very much bought as a commodity, but in order to keep that coolant system running effectively and properly, because the other thing as well to consider is water hardness, because you know if you have a kettle that all furs up because you've got hard water.
Lincolnshire's a bugger for it. Yeah. Kettles only last a couple of 3 years. Our kettle gets a lot of ammo.
I imagine yours does.
Yeah,
you've got shares in kettle manufacturers, I imagine. But so bearing that in mind, depending where you are in the world or even the country, you could be using hard water in there. Now you're supposed to use deionized or demineralized water.
I put deionized water in. Yeah.
That's the best way of stopping that from happening. But of course, not everybody follows that process. So to a certain extent, you've got to have certain chemistry as well, which will combat the formation of those hard water salts, those calcium and magnesium salts. So that's another little bit of added complexity we have to consider. So yeah, so it's a very much overlooked commodity, but it's essential to way the engine's going to work and operate at its peak efficient temperature. And it all relies on that
whatever, we're
antifreeze
changing
coolant.
it at 5 years.
5 years, if it's a 5-year OAT technology
Whatever,
antifreeze,
whatever.
change
if
it
it's got the
5
blue
years.
stuff in, it's generally, but that's
Yeah.
a general rule of thumb.
Absolutely.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah.
Fair play.
We still sell quite a lot of the old 2-year blue MEG antifreeze for the classic and vintage world because...
Why wouldn't you want to put the modern stuff in?
Well, the older metallurgy
Is the specific gravity the same?
Yeah, well, it's to do... Yeah, the monoethylene glycol gives it its specific gravity. It's quite heavy. It's heavier than water. It's about,
Okay.
So, which is why you use a hydrometer to... I don't know if you ever used a hydrometer.
I do,
Yeah, okay. So if water's 1 and antifreeze is about 1.13, I think. So if it's 50-50, it's going to be somewhere in the middle, which is where your hydrometer...
Yeah, the balancing you get. How many balls have we got up?
Exactly right, yeah. So, but no, if you look at old MEG type antifreeze, the old inorganic acid technology, it's more aligned to the older kind of metallurgies used in the older engines. Things like silicates, for example, are brilliant at looking after aluminium in newer engines. So some people use silicates, but if you're using the wrong gasket material, it'll go for your gaskets on your water pumps and various other things.
Yeah.
So unless you've got the correct gasket material,
Chucking wire out everywhere.
yeah, absolutely. So
My word. Listen here.
it's fine tuning.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
fine tuning.
yeah.
So as I say, don't be confused by colour or go on colour. Colour is purely cosmetic. OEMs have their own specifications as to what type of antifreeze is suitable for use in whichever particular engine, basically. Don't look at it as a commodity. Don't think of it as because the weather's getting cold. It's all year round.
Course,
It's a coolant designed to look after that engine 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, no matter it's winter or summer,
Yeah.
it's still
For 5 years.
preventative maintenance.
Because even if it's just sat there not being used, it's still protecting that
Keeping on
system
top of the
for
corrosion.
Yeah. So the other thing to bear in mind, of course, and you can do this with engine oils to a certain extent, as long as you've got the correct specification and the specification the same, you can mix them or top them up, okay?
Yep, okay.
The same applies to antifreeze coolants. So antifreeze coolants should only be mixed with antifreeze coolants of the same specification.
Go on.
So, you know...
What if you don't?
Well, the chemistry may not be compatible.
Okay.
So you're relying on the chemistry to look after oxidation, stop rusting, corrosion, pH, various other things. They may be competing with each other. They may neutralise each other. You know, so suddenly you haven't got very active chemistry.
So it's a useless antifreeze.
Absolutely.
It could, right? Okay. So don't mix the buggers.
Don't mix them. And of course, you know, we've mentioned colour. You know, the
and this is the
the
thing
blues,
you said to me.
reds,
Colour. The colour is
oranges,
irrelevant.
Yellows, purples. We've seen
There's
so
all of
many.
these different colours.
Purely cosmetic. I mean, the biggest reason why
interesting.
it was dyed originally is so that you could see you'd put antifreeze in, because antifreeze without the dye is actually almost like water. If you're looking to top up your antifreeze in the expansion tank with another antifreeze, irrelevant of colour, it's the specification you're looking for.
It's got to be compatible.
Make
and
sure
and if you
it's the
don't know
correct
what's in it,
specification.
drop it out and put a fresh load in.
Exactly
if you
right.
don't know.
If you've got a vehicle of unknown vehicle history or maintenance, you don't know what's in there, you don't know how long it's been in there, for the sake of a few pounds, just
drop it out, start again.
Start again, because it's looking after so much more that you can't see inside that engine.
And like I said, if you put conflicting coolant antifreeze in there, it could neutralise it, so it's not doing any
antifreeze,
and it's not,
absolutely,
right. So no, interesting.
So as I say, just be very careful about how you would do that. But
interesting.
So,
But the general rule of thumb, right. Yeah. Don't mix them if you don't know what's in it.
If you don't know what's in it.
And 50-50 mix is the sort of bedrock.
If you're unsure,
if it is the bedrock,
if you're unsure, if you're unsure, you can always get guidance and advice on different mixing ratios. But if you're unsure, 50-50 gives you the maximum freezing depression and the maximum boiling point elevation.
Sound. Okay. Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
Okay, cheers, Guy. So if you want to see any more content like this or videos with Guy, then visit the Morris Lubricants website or our YouTube channel.